Hey everyone, Connie here, and yeah, another update regarding all of this shiz. Um, so I've watched a few other videos from other people lately regarding the entire totally not Mark Toei animation situation. Um, one of which was a very well handled one from Curtis at Spaz Boys Comedy. If you haven't checked out the channel, it's a reaction channel mainly. Curtis on it reacts to a bunch of different stuff. um, and he made this very well thought out video talking about this, talking about the copyright side of things and just the fair use side of things and all, and noted that yeah, it's within fair use and everything. And I watched some other videos and stuff as well. And although I didn't get a lot of feedback from you guys on that last video, it's like I still feel like I've come to my decision and come to figure out what I'm going to do in this situation. Um, so let's start with the obvious part of this all. Nothing's going to be done. YouTube isn't going to do shit. Toei isn't going to do shit. And the reason for this is because they don't have to. As Curtis outlines in his video, YouTube has stepped away from handling a lot of this copyright stuff themselves because laziness. They don't want to have to deal with it themselves. They don't want to have to do all that extra work for all of these different creators on this platform. So they just kind of put it into this system to where they don't have to. They just send it to the copyright claimant, and it's like they handle it basically, which is extremely wrong. Like from an ethical, moral standpoint, it's just wrong because it allows for these companies to abuse the system. They don't have to be right. And honestly, as Curtis again points out, they pretty much know they're not. They know they're not in the right. They know that they don't actually have a real case here and that they would probably lose if it were brought to court. But the issue is they don't have to worry about that. By striking so hard with 150 takedowns, 150 plus takedowns on Totally Not Mark's videos, they've basically made it so that he can't do anything about it. And YouTube doesn't care because they don't have to do anything as it is. And apparently, something new was added to Toei's website regarding this kind of stuff. And apparently it like very slyly calls out this entire situation by saying like, oh, it's like part of the Q&A section of the site and all. It's like, can we use the content for videos on YouTube and stuff? It actually says stuff like that. And it's like the answer for it in the Q&A section is basically like, we don't allow that. It doesn't matter. It's not going to change. It doesn't matter how big your follower count is or whatnot or how many people are behind you. It literally says this. And it's like, okay, this is new on the website, right? This is very clearly in reference to the Totally Not Mark situation. So it's very clearly the company saying that nothing's going to change. And here's the thing with that. What would our boycotting do at that point? They've already stated they're not going to change anything. No matter how much outcry there is, no matter how much we complain, no matter anything really. How many of us there are doesn't matter to them. And let's be honest, it's probably not going to hurt them at all if we do continue. It's not going to hurt their sales. It's not going to hurt the company in any way. If it would, it probably would be a different situation altogether. But that's the point. It's not going to do anything. Most boycotts of products or companies or stuff that have dealt in like shady shit going around or whatnot, they're not going to do anything. Boycotting Kellogg's because of the entire workers' strike situation that's going on, it's not going to do anything. It's not going to hurt them. They'll be fine. Because there's just as many people who aren't going to boycott them. Boycotting J.K. Rowling because of her transphobic bigotry isn't going to do anything. It's not going to hurt her. What's the point? Well, at this point you just basically have to determine, if it's not going to do anything, is it something that is important enough to me to continue to fight over, to where even if it's not going to do anything, I want to spend my time fighting it still. For example, with me, the J.K. Rowling situation is something I very much am active in still fighting against, because of personal reasons, obviously, with being trans. And being a trans woman specifically, which is very specifically what Rowling tends to be a piece of shit about. But all in all, it's like, I understand it's not going to do anything to hurt her, but I don't feel right supporting her in any way. This situation is undeniably not as big a deal. Yeah, it does hurt Mark and his team in terms of money and everything, in terms of, getting paid and everything. But the situation is, the fans, Mark's followers and subscribers and people have rallied so hard that they've gotten a lot of money donated. Mark and his team are gonna be fine in that regard. They got the people behind them to help them, who will help them. And that's awesome, and that's great. So it's like, okay, so you have to ask, what is the boycotting going to do now? Nothing. It's not going to change Toei. It's not going to change YouTube. Nothing is going to come from this. So with the entire monetary situation fixed because of the donations that people have put through and everything, the next question becomes, is it worth fighting for still? Is it something that is such a big deal to us that we feel the need to stand behind it still? And as much of a big deal as it is, I would honestly say maybe not. With the fact that they did get money, that they did get financial help from the viewers and everything, that was the biggest issue that I had. Because copyright claims happen all the time, and unfortunately we're not going to be able to do much about them. So it's like, the biggest issue for me with all of this was the fact that it was during the holiday season taking away money from these people, from Mark and his team. It was actively hurting them in terms of that. But with that taken care of, and Mark even choosing to donate his share to to a charity and everything, there's not really that issue anymore. So it's kind of more of just the takedowns themselves, which again are very bad. But comparative to other stuff out there, it's not as big. And I'm not saying this to devalue the situation at all. I'm saying this partially out of out of reasoning to end this. And there's other reasons too, which I'll get to here. Another reason is Mark asked, or not really asked, but said that he was done with the boycott, that he no longer supported the boycott, and that he was moving on, that he would put up one more video, incomplete as it was, which he did. He put up part of the Amazing Spider-Man review, what was completed at that time, and that he and his team would take off the rest of the year and discuss things on how to get back into the swing in 2022. And that's great. As I said last time, that's a great idea. But that means, like he said, he no longer supports the boycott. And as I questioned last time, does that mean we should kind of respect his wishes and stop, just move on? Or should we continue to fight? And I was genuinely unsure last time, as you guys know. Because there's a valid side to both. And so that's another reason why I'm saying all this. I'm talking about all of this. And I still believe, in fact, I not even believe, I know Toei is still in the wrong here. But again, if this is not going to do anything, if Mark and his team are financially set, if continuing to boycott would kind of be going against Mark's wishes, I almost don't want to anymore. I feel like it's at this point pointless. Again, it doesn't do anything. And it's just, all it is making an empty statement that is never going to make a difference. And again, as I stated last time, you do also have to realize that Toei is different. Like, there's different parts to the company. So the part that handles all of this copyright stuff, they're doing their jobs as they know, as Japanese copyright law like has them do. And while that may not technically apply, and their copyright law does not actually affect non-Japanese citizens at all, they're still going to run with it because they can. Because of YouTube. And as Curtis said, this is more YouTube's issue. This is more their fault than even Toei's. Not to absolve Toei of any blame here, but YouTube is the one who made this possible. Without the changes they made to the system, this wouldn't be happening. This wouldn't be as big of an issue as it is. Because the way it used to be was better in that regard. And so it's like, it more end up having to be like, if you really wanted to, like, make a point with who was truly even more so at fault, you would have to boycott YouTube. And so it's like it goes into an entirely different situation, entirely different mindset with that. And so again, I'm not absolving Toei of any blame here. They're definitely in the wrong too. But you also have to understand that Toei is adhering to Japanese copyright law. And while the copyright law in Japan is extremely backwards and illogical, it's what it is there. And like while they're in the wrong, that's just what they know. So that's not inherently completely their fault. They didn't create the copyright law. Um, but to be fair, they also don't have to inherently stick with it to that degree. Um, yeah, it's kind of insane to think about. But it's mostly just YouTube and the fact that Japanese copyright law is that backwards. And so again, it's like at this point I feel like the boycott would almost be for nothing anyway. And then there comes my final reason with the decision I've made, and that if not clear by now is I'm going to continue. I'm going to stop the boycott. I'm going to continue One Piece and all. Um, the final reasoning and all is a more personal one for me. As I stated in the other videos, One Piece is my favorite piece of media of all time, specifically the anime, because that's what I take in with it. And while I definitely still have issues with Toei in this regard, let's be honest, it's not just them. A lot of major companies are like this. Nintendo does this kind of shit too. The problem here is that it's not going to change. And it's honestly, even though it hasn't even really been affected much yet because of just when this entire situation took place and everything and how it's all worked out, just this entire situation and choosing to, for the time being, put a hold on One Piece has caused some struggles for my mental health. And it's been really hard on me because even though again nothing has actually like occurred with that yet, because One Piece could be considered a comfort show for me because of how much it means to me and how emotionally invested I am in it. It's something that I watch every week for the sake of not just general enjoyment, but because it makes me feel good. It helps me get through each week knowing that I'm going to get to another episode of One Piece. Like other comfort shows I've had, like Dragon Maid, Owl House, and so on and so forth, it legitimately helps me deal with a lot of my own issues, with my own insecurities, with my depression and anxiety, and so on and so forth. And so, like, the idea of, even though I hadn't actually done anything with it yet, the idea of dropping it, even if just temporarily, even if just for the time being, it bothered me. It sent my emotional and mental state into a tailspin. And I kind of really wasn't doing well. I tried not to show it in my videos. I have no idea if I was successful or not. But I was really not doing well over that decision. Like when I made the first video and everything announcing that I was going to be putting it on hold, I even mentioned that I was probably not going to be able to record the rest of that day. And I couldn't because it was just bothering me so much. And throughout this past weekend and everything, and as things continue to change with this entire situation and all, it's just, it got much, much worse for me to the point where I was really not in a good headspace. And to some, that might seem a little weird, but again, the series legitimately brings me extreme comfort. And as someone who is very consistently uncomfortable in the world, for someone who does deal with this depression and anxiety and everything like that, it's like, yeah, the comfort's kind of needed. It was taking a massive toll on me, and I was in a really bad spot because of it. So that's why I made that video like a couple days ago and asked you guys like for some advice, because I didn't know what to do given the situation that Mark has chosen to just move on. I didn't know what to do. And so I gave it a lot more thought. And again, although I didn't get a lot of responses, I still had to figure this out. And yeah, like I said, my decision when I came to it was to continue watching One Piece. To just end this entire thing, this entire just, my mind's all over the place right now, so it's kind of like deal with me. Sorry. And the boycott, that's the word I was trying to think of. As much as I still stand for Mark and still like support him in this entire debacle, again, nothing's going to change, and I don't want to put myself through this legitimate pain and sorrow and anxiety just to stand up for something that's not going to do anything. Especially when Mark himself has said he doesn't support the boycott anymore. Like, he didn't just say he's not doing it anymore. He actively said that he does not support the boycott anymore, which implies that he's just fully against boycotting them at this point and just wants us all to move on as well. And if that's the case, it's like, it almost makes me feel guilty about continuing. So I feel like the best course of action here is just to move on. But we're not going to do so right away. We're still taking this week off. There's no One Piece reaction today. The reason for this is although I would love to get back to it and do and because it's my comfort show, I feel the best thing to do in this situation is to just let this situation as a whole rest, and then come back next week with more of a clean mind about it. Because I don't want this entire situation to hurt my reaction to the episode, or to overall just cloud my focus or anything with it. So we're taking this week off. We'll get to this week's episode and next week's next Monday. So we'll be doing 2 episodes next Monday. And then after that is actually the break, the 2 week break until we come back with the new episode and new opening at the beginning of 2022. But again, it's just I feel like I very much need to clear my mind of this all, because again, as much as I do side with Mark and stand by him in all of this and his team, it's wrecking me, and I can't handle that anymore. And so I need to just kind of try to push this all behind me if I can. And just work to better things. To, as Mark is, move on. And hopefully, once that occurs, we can just worry about things at that time. But yeah, I do very much need this at this point to just move on, because this has taken a huge toll on me, like more so than a lot of things lately. And not just because of, the depression and anxiety sinking in as I drop or put One Piece on hold, but just everything about this entire situation has upset me, like legitimately caused me to be upset. So I thank you all so much for this, and please continue to support Mark in all of this. Like, even if he's done with the situation, continue to support him. He still deserves it. Do what you can to help, just side with him and everything. And if for you that does mean continuing to boycott, then okay, do so. But do what you feel is right. Do what you feel is the smart thing to do here. As long as you're just siding with him. If you're siding with Toei, fuck off. And I'm not afraid to say that, and I will not sugarcoat that. If you're siding with Toei in this situation, just fuck off. Just, I'm not going to deal with that. And I don't want to hear it. But side with Mark and do, going forward, what you feel is the best to do in regards to this entire thing. And for those of you who supported me in all of this and were siding by me and all, thank you. And yeah, we'll come back to this, come back to One Piece after a week off. I need to let this all kind of, like, all the steam out, basically, because it's been a lot. And I can't just hold that in anymore. So I need a week to just kind of, in a way, detox, I guess you could say. And come back to it with a fresher mind again. Just for my own sake. So, thank you all so much for supporting Mark, for those of you who have. And hopefully we could just move on and not let this take as big of a stress on our mental healths going forward, so we can just continue on. Mark is not quitting. He's not giving up. He's made that clear that he's going to keep going with his content. It's just he does need a break and everything after all this for his mental health, which is completely fair, and he deserves it. So, yeah. So this will most likely be the last I mention this as well. I will not mention this in the when I do the One Piece reaction next week. I will, unless I somehow forget and end up mentioning it, I don't plan to mention it at all. I want to kind of move away at this point and just kind of focus on the show, I guess you could say again. Um, but yeah, yeah. I do very much thank you all once again. And for now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.